Federal Reserve is sitting down for another critical policy meeting this morning, and Wall Street is really aching for another or itching for another interest rate cut. Our Fed correspondent Brian Cheung is here. Brian, the way I'm looking at this, and I think a lot of people on Wall Street are looking at, they're looking at the statement from the Fed, and one key statement in particular, to act as appropriate. If they pull that, that wouldn't be good.
Well, no, it wouldn't. But I think that for the most part, people would expect the language to maybe get tweaked a little bit. Maybe instead of act as appropriate, maybe as needed is a suggestion that I saw from some Wall Street notes. But regardless, everyone expects the Federal Reserve to do the same thing that it's done in the last two consecutive meetings, which is cut rates yet again. The Fed funds futures market pricing, and get this, a 97.3% chance of a 25 basis point cut in the meeting.
Foregone conclusion.
Basically foregone conclusion, exactly. And the dot plots that we saw from the last meeting did project that there was the possibility of this next rate cut. So we saw based on, and for those that don't know how to read this, basically this is a projection for where all 17 members of the Federal Reserve Board kind of see rates by the end of the year. So by the end of 2019, you did have 7 members saying that they could see the case for another rate cut. Again, this was as of the September 18 meeting. So this seems like, look, they're about to follow through on this. What's going to be interesting, Brian, is the point that you raised, which is how is Powell going to communicate this? Will there be another rate cut in the last meeting that's in December for this year? For what it's worth, the street is kind of split on this. You have Barclays saying we expect a 4th cut, but then you have Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse saying we think it's 3 and out.
I'm also curious to see who's going to dissent. You know, if they go ahead and cut like we are expecting them to, how many dissent and who?
Yeah.
And how will the market react to that?
Well, we saw 3 dissents in the last meeting, all from Reserve Bank presidents. But what was interesting was that they were on different sides. You had 2 that opted to have, they would have preferred no change at all. And then you had one, St. Louis Fed President James Bullard, who had advocated for 50 basis points of cuts. The expectation is not necessarily for that many dissents. People are speculating that maybe James Bullard would be okay with the 25 basis point cut, but that Eric Rosengren and Esther George would continue to dissent and prefer no change at all. That's something that's worth watching. We won't have another set of dot plot projections for this meeting, unfortunately, but something that's kind of worth watching is the October 11 decision where the Federal Reserve decided it was going to resume balance sheet growth. Not quantitative easing, but balance sheet growth. Powell hasn't talked about that since then, so that's going to be worth watching in the press conference tomorrow.